Welcome to Official Sigma Male, where we decode the subtle dynamics of power, respect, and authentic masculinity. Today's exploration takes us into a fascinating psychological territory. What actually happens when a woman begs a Sigma man? The results might surprise you, challenging conventional wisdom about male-female dynamics and revealing deeper truths about human nature. If you've ever found yourself navigating complex emotional situations while trying to maintain your core principles, this analysis will provide invaluable insights. Subscribe now to join a community of men committed to authentic self-development rather than superficial tactics. Because understanding true Sigma psychology isn't just about personal power. It's about creating genuine connections, while never in compromising who you truly are. The power shift dynamic. In conventional relationships, men typically pursue women, creating a standard dynamic where female validation is prized above all. But when a woman finds herself begging a Sigma man, a fundamental power shift occurs that few understand. Unlike alpha males who actively dominate social hierarchies, the Sigma operates outside conventional structures, naturally commanding respect. Through his detachment from social validation, when a woman begs a Sigma, she's unconsciously acknowledging this inverted power dynamic. The Sigma man hasn't deliberately engineered this situation. He simply exists in his own reality, where external validation holds minimal value. This creates an irresistible gravitational pull for those accustomed to being pursued. What makes this dynamic particularly unexpected is how effortless it appears. While pickup artists and dating coaches teach elaborate techniques to manufacture desirability, the Sigma achieves this naturally through authentic self-prioritization. His boundaries aren't tactical, they're a genuine expression of his values. Consider James, a software developer who declined an attractive colleague's repeated requests for a date simply because he valued his professional boundaries. His refusal wasn't strategic, it was principled. 3 months later, she pursued him with increasing intensity, having grown accustomed to easy male attention. The power had shifted not through manipulation, but through authentic self-respect. This power shift creates a fascinating psychological effect. The more a woman encounters this unmovable self-possession, the more she questions her own value system. Has she been overvaluing her appearance and undervaluing character? This realization often triggers increased pursuit, creating a cycle that further confirms the Sigma's unintentional dominance in the dynamic. Recognizing genuine need versus manipulation. Tichy. Sigma man's greatest strength in these scenarios isn't his ability to resist begging, it's his capacity to discern genuine need from manipulative tactics. This discriminating awareness separates the true Sigma from those merely adopting Sigma behaviors as strategy. When a woman begs a Sigma man, her motivations generally fall into one of two categories: authentic emotional connection or tactical manipulation. The Sigma instinctively recognizes the difference through subtle behavioral patterns most men miss entirely. Manipulation typically presents with inconsistent emotional displays, convenient timing of vulnerability, and strategic withdrawal of affection. These patterns become transparent to the Sigma, who observes human behavior from an emotionally detached perspective. His psychological independence allows him to see what others, blinded by desire or ego, cannot. Take Michael's experience with his ex-girlfriend Sophia. After their breakup, she appeared at his apartment tearfully begging for reconciliation. While most men would either coldly dismiss her or immediately take her back, Michael observed key details: her perfectly maintained makeup despite hours of crying, her strategic positioning of the conversation in a public space where he'd feel social pressure to respond kindly, and her subtle references to a male colleague who'd been supporting her through the breakup. A Sigma man recognizes these inconsistencies not because he's cynical, but because he's attuned to authentic human behavior. When someone genuinely needs connection, their vulnerability lacks performance elements. True need doesn't calculate its presentation for maximum effect. This discernment doesn't make the Sigma cold, it makes him wise. By accurately identifying manipulation, he can respond appropriately rather than being drawn into emotional games that ultimately damage both parties. This clarity is what makes his reactions so unexpected to those accustomed to emotional leverage. As a relationship tool, the value of uncompromised principles. What truly distinguishes the Sigma man when faced with a woman's pleading is his uncompromised adherence to personal principles. Unlike the reactive behaviors of other male archetypes, the Sigma operates from an internal value system that remains consistent regardless of external pressure or emotional appeals. When a woman begs a Sigma man, she encounters something rare in today's relationship landscape: immovable principles that aren't simply negotiation tactics. This unwavering commitment to personal values creates an unexpected response in women accustomed to men who adjust their boundaries based on potential romantic outcomes. The Sigma understands a fundamental truth that eludes many: principles sacrificed for temporary connection create permanent disrespect. Each compromise made under emotional pressure diminishes authentic attraction while increasing manipulative behavior. This isn't theory, it's observable relationship dynamics. Consider Alex, who maintained his twice-weekly solitude practice despite his girlfriend's increasingly emotional pleas to spend more time together. While most men would have abandoned their needs to appease her, Alex calmly explained that his personal development time was non-negotiable, offering instead to improve the quality of their time together. Initially frustrated, she later confessed. This unwavering commitment to self-development was precisely what attracted her most strongly to him. This pattern repeats across countless scenarios. The Sigma, who refuses to abandon his career focus despite a partner's ultimatums. The man who maintains his fitness regimen despite emotional appeals to skip it just this once. The entrepreneur who honors business commitments despite romantic pressure to prioritize spontaneous plans. The unexpected result? Women don't leave these men for their inflexibility. They become increasingly invested in earning a place within these structured lives. What appears as risk actually creates security, as it demonstrates that the relationship exists because of genuine desire rather than convenience or manipulation. The Sigma's uncompromised principles signal something crucial. His life has direction beyond the relationship. This directionality, rather than creating distance, establishes the foundation for genuine connection based on mutual respect rather than emotional leverage or obligation. Strategic emotional distance. Perhaps the most misunderstood element of the Sigma response to female begging is his strategic emotional distance. This isn't emotional unavailability or callousness. It's a calibrated psychological position that prevents emotional manipulation while allowing authentic connection. When a woman begs a Sigma man, she enters an emotional space where typical leverage points don't function as expected. The Sigma maintains a precise emotional distance, close enough to understand her genuine feelings, but removed enough to evaluate them objectively. This distance isn't calculated to create attraction. It's the natural expression of emotional self-sufficiency. This strategic position creates an unexpected phenomenon. The woman experiences being simultaneously understood and uncontrolled, a rare combination that creates powerful attraction. While most men either coldly dismiss emotional appeals or become completely enveloped by them, the Sigma occupies the optimal middle ground. David exemplifies this perfectly in his interaction with Sarah, who tearfully insisted he cancel his business trip to attend her friend's wedding. Rather than immediately yielding or dismissing her feelings, David acknowledged her disappointment while maintaining emotional perspective. "I understand this matters to you, and I wish the timing worked differently. My commitment to this client precedes our relationship, and honoring my word is fundamental to who I am." His response acknowledged her feelings without being controlled by them. The strategic distance maintained by Sigma men creates space for women to experience their emotions without making these emotions the man's responsibility. This distinction is crucial. Most men either invalidate women's feelings or assume complete responsibility for them. The Sigma does neither, creating a psychologically healthy dynamic rare in modern relationships. This emotional positioning explains why women often become more attracted after a Sigma refuses their emotional appeals. They experience something unusual, emotional validation without emotional control. The Sigma understands her feelings without being manipulated by them, a response that signals exceptional emotional intelligence and self-possession. The strategic, emotional distance of the Sigma isn't about creating attraction through unavailability. It's about maintaining psychological integrity that naturally attracts through its rarity and authenticity. Evive, setting boundaries without hesitation. When a woman begs a Sigma man, she encounters one of his defining characteristics, the ability to establish boundaries without hesitation, explanation, or apology. This instant boundary-setting capability represents emotional mastery few men achieve, creating unexpected responses in women accustomed to boundary negotiations. The Sigma doesn't deliberate about boundaries in the moment. They're pre-established through his values and readily deployed when challenged. This instant response system operates without the common masculine fear of female disapproval that typically delays or weakens boundary enforcement. What makes the Sigma's boundary setting particularly effective is its matter-of-fact delivery. He doesn't establish boundaries with anger, defensiveness, or excessive explanation. Emotional responses that signal boundaries are actually negotiable. Instead, his boundaries emerge as simple statements of fact, presented with the same emotional tone as commenting on the weather. Mark demonstrated this when his girlfriend repeatedly called during his designated work hours, despite previous discussions. Rather than answering with irritation or ignoring the calls, passive-aggressive boundary setting, he answered once, stating, "I'm in my work block until 4 p.m. I'll call you afterward." He then silenced his phone without waiting for her response or offering further explanation. This boundary, delivered without emotional charge, was respected within days. The Sigma's boundaries aren't established to control others. They're established to maintain his own standards and life direction. This fundamental difference in motivation explains why Sigma boundaries rarely trigger the rebellion or testing that other men's boundaries often face. Women intuitively recognize that these boundaries aren't about controlling them, but about the man controlling himself. This distinction creates an unexpected response. Rather than resenting his boundaries, women typically increase their respect. For the Sigma man, his boundaries aren't experienced as rejection, but as an invitation to engage with someone who knows exactly who he is and what he requires. This clarity, rather than creating distance, establishes the foundation for deeper connection based on authenticity rather than compliance. The Sigma's boundary setting provides women with something increasingly rare: the opportunity to respect a man's established parameters rather than constantly renegotiating shifting standards. This consistency creates psychological safety that counterintuitively increases attraction rather than diminishing it. The psychology behind female pursuit. To fully understand what happens when a woman begs a Sigma man, we must examine the psychological mechanisms driving this pursuit. Contrary to simplified evolutionary psychology explanations, these dynamics operate through sophisticated psychological principles that the Sigma intuitively understands. When a woman pursues a Sigma with increasing intensity, she's responding to several psychological triggers that operate beyond conscious awareness. Primary among these is the violation of expectancy theory, the cognitive dissonance created when expected patterns of male behavior are disrupted by the Sigma's responses. Most men follow predictable response patterns to female emotional appeals: immediate compliance, angry rejection, or passive-aggressive withdrawal. The Sigma disrupts these expectations by responding with calm acknowledgement without compliance. This expectancy violation creates cognitive tension that the brain seeks to resolve through increased engagement, manifesting as intensified pursuit. This mechanism explains why women often increase pursuit efforts after a Sigma declines their requests. The unexpected response creates an unresolved psychological loop that demands completion. Jordan experienced this when declining Rachel's invitation to an event that conflicted with his personal commitments. Rather than being disappointed and moving on, she created 5 subsequent opportunities for interaction within the following week. The second psychological principle at work is the reframing of value. When a Sigma man doesn't respond to typical feminine appeal strategies, it creates a subconscious revaluation process. The woman begins questioning whether her standard approaches to connection hold the value she's attributed to them, often leading to the development of more authentic connection strategies. The third mechanism involves validation source transference. Most modern dating dynamics position men as validation seekers and women as validation providers. When a woman encounters a Sigma who operates independently of her validation, she often experiences a role reversal that triggers pursuit as she seeks to re-establish her position as the validation provider. These psychological mechanisms explain why the Sigma man, who isn't deliberately employing strategy, naturally evokes stronger pursuit reactions than men using tactical approaches to create attraction. The Sigma's authentic self-validation disrupts fundamental psychological expectations in ways that strategic behavior cannot replicate. Understanding these mechanisms isn't about manipulation, but about recognizing genuine psychological dynamics that explain otherwise puzzling behavior patterns in male-female interactions. Maintaining frame under pressure. When a woman begs a Sigma man, she witnesses one of his most valuable capabilities: maintaining psychological frame under emotional pressure. This frame maintenance, the ability to preserve his perspective despite external emotional intensity, represents emotional mastery that creates powerful attraction through its rarity. The Sigma's frame maintenance isn't stubbornness or emotional detachment. It's the preservation of his perspective and values when emotional currents would typically erode them. While most men either surrender their perspective entirely or defensively overcompensate when facing female emotional intensity, the Sigma simply maintains his position with calm conviction. This capability becomes particularly evident when a woman escalates emotional appeals. As tears, accusations, or ultimatums intensify, the average man experiences increasing pressure to abandon his position. The Sigma experiences the same pressure but doesn't allow it to dictate his response. This emotional sovereignty creates an unexpected effect. Rather than resenting his stability, women typically find it deeply attractive. Nathan demonstrated this when his girlfriend became increasingly emotional about his friendship with a female colleague. Rather than either ending the friendship to appease her or becoming defensively angry about her concerns, he maintained frame. "I understand. You're feeling insecure about my friendship with Rebecca. I've been transparent about our purely professional relationship, and that transparency won't change. I won't end a valuable professional connection, but I'm happy to discuss specific boundaries that might help you feel more comfortable. This frame maintenance accomplishes something crucial. It honors her emotions without being controlled by them. The Sigma recognizes that emotional intensity doesn't equate to emotional validity, a distinction that allows him to respond compassionately without compromising his position. The unexpected result of this frame maintenance is increased respect rather than increased conflict. When a woman's emotional intensity doesn't result in control, she typically experiences something valuable: the opportunity to express feelings without those feelings dismantling relationship stability. This creates psychological safety through consistency rather than compliance. Frame maintenance requires substantial emotional development. The Sigma must recognize and regulate his own emotional responses to external pressure while simultaneously acknowledging the legitimate feelings of others. This balance, neither suppressing emotions nor being controlled by them, represents emotional maturity that naturally commands respect. When to show compassion. The most sophisticated element of the Sigma response to a woman's begging involves knowing precisely when compassion serves integrity rather than undermines it. Contrary to caricatures of emotional detachment, the authentic Sigma man possesses deep compassion. He simply deploys it strategically rather than reactively. When a woman begs a Sigma man, she encounters discrimination rare in modern relationships. The ability to distinguish between situations requiring compassionate flexibility versus situations demanding principled firmness. This discernment explains why Sigma responses often appear unpredictable to outside observers, while following consistent internal logic. The Sigma understands a fundamental relationship truth. Compassion without discernment becomes enabling, while principles without compassion become rigidity. His response balances these elements through careful evaluation of three factors: authenticity of need, alignment with mutual growth, and precedent implications. Daniel illustrated this discernment when his girlfriend called distraught after failing an important exam, begging him to cancel his long-planned solo hiking trip to support her. Rather than automatically declining based on principle or immediately yielding based on emotion, he evaluated the situation through these factors. Recognizing her genuine distress, the opportunity to demonstrate valuable support, and the non-habitual nature of her request, he compassionately rescheduled his trip without resentment. This same man firmly declined when she later requested he skip his brother's wedding to attend her company party. Same man, same relationship, different response, based not on mood or convenience, but on principled compassion. The Sigma's compassion isn't arbitrary. It follows consistent internal guidelines that prioritize genuine need over manipulative demand. This discernment allows him to be simultaneously kind and boundaried, creating relationship dynamics built on mutual respect rather than emotional leverage. What makes the Sigma's compassion particularly effective is its delivery without expectation. When he shows compassion, it comes without the typical male pattern of expected reciprocation or self-congratulation. This absence of emotional debt creation transforms his compassion from a transaction into a genuine expression of character. This calibrated compassion explains one of the most unexpected aspects of Sigma female dynamics. Women feel simultaneously safe and accountable in his presence. His compassion provides security, while his discernment ensures respect, a combination that creates powerful attraction through its psychological rarity. Unexpected responses that build respect. The Sigma's response to female begging often appears counterintuitive to conventional relationship wisdom, yet consistently builds deeper respect. These unexpected responses don't follow typical male reaction patterns, creating powerful psychological impacts through their originality and authenticity. When a woman begs a Sigma man, his responses typically incorporate several elements that differentiate him from other male archetypes. First is his complete absence of defensiveness. While most men become either defensively rigid or defensively accommodating when pressured, the Sigma simply states his position without the emotional armor of defensiveness. This absence of defensive energy immediately changes the dynamic from confrontational to conversational. Second is his appropriate de-escalation without dismissal. The Sigma naturally lowers emotional temperature without invalidating the importance of the conversation. Rather than matching emotional escalation or shutting down entirely, he maintains engagement while reducing intensity, a communication skill that builds immediate respect. Third is his consistent focus on underlying dynamics rather than surface demands. When begged for specific actions or commitments, the Sigma addresses the fundamental needs or concerns beneath the request rather than merely responding to its surface presentation. This depth of engagement signals emotional intelligence that commands natural respect. Ryan demonstrated these elements when his girlfriend became increasingly emotional about his upcoming business relocation, begging him to decline the opportunity. Rather than becoming defensive about his career or dismissively promising it wouldn't affect their relationship, he responded, "I understand this creates legitimate uncertainty for you. Instead of focusing on whether I take this position, let's discuss what you're actually concerned about, how this might change our relationship dynamics, and what that means for your sense of security." This unexpected pivot from the specific request to the underlying concern completely transformed the conversation from confrontational to collaborative. His willingness to engage with her legitimate needs while maintaining his decision-making sovereignty created respect that actually strengthened their connection through what could have been a divisive issue. The Sigma's unexpected responses build respect because they demonstrate rare emotional capabilities, the ability to engage without becoming entangled, to understand without being controlled, and to maintain direction without creating disconnection. These capabilities aren't strategies, they're expressions of genuine emotional development that naturally command respect. 10. The ultimate test of Sigma character. The true measure of Sigma development isn't found in easy situations, but in moments of maximum pressure, when a woman he genuinely cares about begs for something that fundamentally conflicts with his core principles. This ultimate test reveals whether his Sigma qualities represent authentic character or merely situational behavior. When a woman the Sigma deeply values begs for compromise on essential principles, he faces the crucible that forms or reveals his true character. Unlike tests involving women he's less invested in, this scenario creates maximum internal pressure to abandon his values for relationship preservation. His response in this moment defines his actual development level. The authentic Sigma maintains his principles, even when doing so risks losing someone he genuinely values. This isn't emotional detachment. It's the mature recognition that compromised principles ultimately destroy the authentic connection that gives relationships their value. This understanding allows him to risk short-term relationship loss for the integrity that makes meaningful connection possible. Connor faced this ultimate test when his partner of 3 years delivered an ultimatum about his entrepreneurial pursuits, begging him to accept corporate stability instead of continuing his business development. Despite genuinely loving her and recognizing the relationship might end, he maintained his commitment to his purpose. I understand your need for security, and I respect that you need to make choices based on that. I can't abandon my vision to create that security for you. That would give you a version of me that neither of us would ultimately respect. The relationship ended, creating genuine grief for both. 6 months later, she returned with a transformed perspective, having recognized that his commitment to purpose was precisely what had created his most attractive qualities. Their reconciliation created a stronger relationship built on mutual respect for individual purpose rather than mutual compromise. This ultimate test reveals the fundamental difference between Sigma authenticity and Sigma imitation. The authentic. Sigma isn't playing a role that can be abandoned when stakes increase. He's expressing core character that remains consistent under maximum pressure. This consistency, rather than creating permanent disconnection, typically creates eventual deep respect, even from those who initially resisted his boundaries. The Sigma passes this ultimate test not through emotional detachment, but through emotional maturity, the ability to experience genuine care for another while simultaneously honoring his life's direction. This integration of connection and purpose represents the most advanced form of masculine development, creating relationships built on mutual respect rather than mutual compromise. The unexpected truth about what happens when a woman begs a Sigma. Man isn't about dominance or rejection. It's about the power of authentic principles in a world of tactical relationships. As we've explored in this analysis, the Sigma response creates a mirror that reflects both parties' true motivations, often catalyzing genuine growth. Subscribe to Official Sigma Male now to continue this journey into authentic masculinity. Unlike channels that offer manipulative shortcuts, we explore the deeper psychological foundations that create lasting confidence and genuine connections. Our next video will reveal the 3 silent signals that instantly communicate Sigma presence without saying a word. Don't miss these insights that have transformed thousands of men's lives. Subscribe now and begin your evolution into your most authentic self.